Part 25. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 241. Zhang Ziluo could feel Niu's enthusiasm. She smiled and said, "Aunt Niu, this is a good thing, how can I dislike it? After eating apricots, don't throw them away, these almonds are not bitter and can be eaten." Zhang Ziluo said politely, "Then I have to thank you, Aunt Niu." Zhang Ziluo knew that when people in the village enthusiastically came to give things to them, they were sincere. If they had to refuse, they would also break their hearts. It's better to accept it and give something else as a gift. Mr. Niu looked at Zhang Ziluo with a strange expression. Ever since Zhang Ziluo cured the arm of Niu's man Lu Kang, Niu was grateful to Ziluo from the bottom of his heart. "You're welcome, Auntie. If you need anything, just call Auntie." Zhang Ziluo also nodded enthusiastically and said, "You're welcome, Aunt Niu, come in." "I won't go in, Shan Mao is still waiting at home." Niu she saw that it was almost noon, so naturally he didn't want to cause trouble to others. She came to give apricots to her sincerely. Mr. Niu was about to leave, so Zhang Ziluo pulled her in and waited for a while. "Auntie, if you know how to leave now, I will be in a hurry with you." With that said, Zhang Ziluo quickly entered the house, scooped out a ladle of kudzu root powder and put it in an oil paper bag. She also took some pickles and hurried out. "Auntie, this is kudzu root powder. When you go home to make it, scoop a little and pour it into a bowl. First mix it with cold water, then pour in hot water, and stir it while pouring, until it becomes a paste. You can add some sugar or honey to drink it, which is good for your health. There is also this plum cabbage, which can be stir-fried or stewed. It is delicious, but it is dried plum cabbage. When you cook it, soak it in water for a while." She knows that Niu's cooking skills are also good. The bean buns she gave him before were delicious. Mr. Niu was warm and moved in her heart. "Look at you, I'm here to give you something, but I have to pick up your things when I get back." How embarrassing. When Niu gives something, he gives it sincerely. Zhang Ziluo said, "Auntie, don't be polite to me. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. If I have something to do later, I'll have the nerve to ask you for help, Auntie." Under Zhang Ziluo's insistence, Niu had no choice but to hold it. She knew that the things Ziluo gave were all good things, things that could not be seen on the market. She doesn't know what kudzu or pickles are. "It's noon and I don't know what to do, so let's stir-fry vegetables with pickled vegetables. I happen to cut a catty of meat at home and stir-fry it with pickled vegetables to taste." Shan Mao, the child, helped her pick apricots and complained that she was hungry and wanted to eat. There was nothing else to eat at home, so he could only eat a few apricots. However, she tasted that the apricots this year were sweeter. In 2 days, there would be ripe apricots on the trees again. She picked them and went to the town to sell them at a stall. "How many cents can you earn? Anyway, it's extra money." Mr. Niu thought about this and hurried back home. Shan Mao was reluctant to throw away the almonds after eating them. He was smashing the almond shells with stones to eat the almonds inside. He heard the sound and ran up and said, "Mom, you are back. Have you given anything to Sister Zhang?" Nyashi tapped Shan Mao's forehead and said, "Don't worry, I've given it. You kid also knows how good your Sister Zhang is." Shan Mao nodded and said, "Well, everyone says Sister Zhang is good and likes Sister Zhang. You kids know a lot." Niu felt a little funny. "Then I don't understand. I heard everything my parents said. My mother wanted to sell food before. Thanks to Aunt Kui and Sister Zhang, she didn't sell food. Otherwise, if you don't have food, you have to spend more money to buy it at the food store. Also, Brother Zhao Erlin said that if the war hits our village, we will go to the mountains to take shelter. Sister Zhang has found a good place. And the chili meat sauce that Sister Zhang gave me before is delicious." Shan Mao said, waving his fingers and saying, "There are also Sephora flour buns. My friends all like to eat them, and I also like to eat them." Niu was stunned. He didn't expect that a child could remember this. "Your sister Zhang is indeed a very nice person. I'm really embarrassed to ask for her things. She gave me kudzu root powder. Although my mother doesn't know what it is, I'll make a bowl for you to taste first." As he spoke, Niu scooped out the bottom of a bowl, poured some cold boiled water into it and stirred it evenly, then brewed it with hot water, stirring while brewing. After stirring for a while, it becomes a paste. The color looks different, it must be delicious. Niu felt something fragrant when she smelled it. She looked at the hungry goat hair and dug a spoonful of honey into it. Her natal brother got this honey from the mountains and gave her a small jar. She is reluctant to use it at all. This will satisfy Shan Mao's hunger. "Wow, mommy has honey. Okay, take it and drink it. Do you like it?" Shan Mao couldn't wait to take it and took a bite with a spoon. "Taking it into my mouth, Mom, it's smooth and delicious." "Yeah. Mom, you eat too." Speaking, Shan Mao scooped up a spoonful and handed it to Niu. Niu couldn't bear to take a bite of delicious food. She felt that her son was happier than she was after eating it. But she also wanted to taste something. Niu took a spoonful of the kudzu powder handed to her by her son. She was stunned. She didn't expect it to be so smooth and tender. Especially with honey, it tastes really good. She had never drunk anything like this. "Hello, this child is really capable. The food they make is so unique and delicious." Niu took a bite and wanted to eat more, but looking at her son's eyes, she felt that her son liked to eat and she felt happy, which made her feel sweet. "Okay, take it and eat it quickly." "Mom, you eat too." "Mom is not hungry now, she still wants to cook, you can take it and eat it." Shan Mao is still 7 years old, and he doesn't quite understand what adults think. He thinks that when his mother says he's not hungry, he means he's not hungry. He was very hungry. Shan Mao took the bowl aside, scooped it up with a spoon and ate it one bite at a time, with a satisfied look on his face. Mr. Niu couldn't help laughing when she saw him like that. Kui family. Although Kui Kinkai was drinking porridge in the living room, the door of the living room was open, so she could see the movement in the yard and hear the voices in the yard. She heard what my sister-in-law was talking to just now. She can feel the sincere enthusiasm between people. It touched her heart slightly. Mrs. Kui said, "That was our neighbor who used to live in the small courtyard. He liked to say that the parents in the village were short-sighted and talkative, but they were not evil-minded and they were warm and cheerful. Everyone helps each other. The life here is simple but also warm." Kui Kinkai said softly, "This is really good. The lives of people in the village are simple, and their status and living conditions cannot be compared with those of big families. But they have good intentions and are pure in heart. This place is better than the Pei family." Mrs. Kui said, "You may not be used to living here at first, but as time goes by, you will also like it." Kui Kinkai said, "Mom, there's nothing I'm not used to. It's nice here." Just watching the scene where my sister-in-law was talking to Aunt Niu and feeling the customs and sentiments here, Kui Kinkai felt very comfortable. She likes this feeling. Get out of class was over at Shizi Academy in the afternoon, and Kui Hejin was not in a hurry to go home. He is waiting for someone. As expected, after a while, Lu Tingan entered Shishi Academy and came to Kui Hejin's study. "The information you asked me to investigate about the Pei family is all here." The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 242. Although Lu Tingan didn't know why Kui Hejin wanted to know the latest information about the Pei family. But he knew that he couldn't ask this. Lu Tingan thought of Brother Kui who found him 2 days ago when he was having a rest, and Brother Kui looked very bad when he picked it up. Lutingen seemed carefree, but he was careful when he should be. Because of his temperament, he also made many friends. Of course he has a cousin who married well, and his brother-in-law knows a lot of information, so he can get this information for Brother Kui. Kui Hejin cupped his hands and said, "Thank you very much. Brother Kui, why are you being so polite to me? Look, first, if you need any help, tell me later." Brother Kui also helped him a lot. Let's talk about his knowledge. Because of Brother Kui's guidance, his knowledge improved. The articles he wrote were all meaningful and made great progress. Even the master would praise him. I feel like I wasn't very familiar with what I was learning when I was studying. But after Brother Kui guided him, he seemed to suddenly understand the knowledge and principles in many books. I felt enlightened all of a sudden. Lutingen admired Brother Kui from the bottom of his heart, and he was also grateful to Brother Kui in his heart. Of course he admires Brother Kui in his heart and always feels that Brother Kui is a very capable person. It has always been Brother Kui who has been helping him, and he has never really done anything for Brother Kui. Brother Kui asked him to help him investigate information, and he wanted to complete this matter well. Kui Hejin nodded and said, "Sorry, please sit down first." Lutingen nodded and sat down quietly next to him. Looking at Brother Kui's expression, he always felt very serious. He could even feel a strong oppressive force. Kui Hejin looked at the information in his hand. Although this information is nothing special, you can still tell something based on the details. Pei Nanshan of the Pei family has been studying in the Imperial College for the past 2 years. Lutingen nodded and said, "Yes, I heard that his knowledge is very good. He will wait until the next exam next year. I heard that with his knowledge, he will be admitted to the Hanlin Academy without any problem. My brother-in-law is a descendant of the same clan of the aristocratic Lan family, so he knows some news about the capital. But I heard that Mr. Pei is very talented, knowledgeable, and polite, so he is highly valued by the princess." Kui Hejin's fingers holding the information turned white, and the veins on his finger joints jumped. On his face, he remained calm. "As far as I know, Pei Nanshan got married that year. How long has it been since then, and everyone has forgotten about his sister?" "Forgot that Pei Nanshan once married his sister?" Lutingen looked puzzled. "Are you married?" "I don't know this, but my brother-in-law said that Pei Nanshan was the unofficial consort, and the information showed that his previous wife was weak and died of illness." Kui Hejin's eyes were filled with a cold light. "Princess Jiamin." "Yes, that's her. I also did some research. Princess Jiamin is the sibling sister of the eldest prince. The eldest prince is the eldest son, but the second prince is the legitimate prince. I heard that the two of them fight fiercely in private. But once Mr. Pei becomes the consort, the Pei family will belong to the eldest prince." Kui Hejin's lips curved in a cold arc. "Are the princes starting to fight now? It means that the emperor's position may not be secure. King Duan sent troops, although the emperor sent troops to quell the chaos. However, wars occur frequently in various places and the borders are unstable. If a few princes continue to fight, everything will become self-evident. I still remember that the eldest prince wanted to win over the Kui family, but the Kui family had always remained neutral. The eldest prince might have had a grudge." Kui Hejin looked at the Pei family's information carefully, then lit a candle and burned all the information. Lutingen was stunned. "Is everything burned?" "Well, it's no longer useful, burn it." Kui Hejin keeps all the information in his mind. "You should have never known this." Lutingen nodded seriously. Kui Hejin told Lutingen some more things before returning home. Zhang Ziluo used apricots to make delicacies at home in the afternoon. She washed a plate of apricots first and let Mrs. Kui and Kui Kinkai eat them. There were a lot of apricots and she couldn't eat them all at once. She planned to make some canned apricots. She went to the back of the house to take a look in the afternoon. The apricots on the apricot trees here were not yet ripe. When it's ripe and you can't finish it, you can make apricot preserves or apricot jam. At this moment, she is making canned apricots. Kui Kinkai and Mrs. Kui have helped Zhang Ziluo wash all the apricots, cut them and remove the cores. Zhang Ziluo originally didn't need Kui Kinkai to do this, but Kui Kinkai couldn't sit still, so she wanted to do something to help. Anyway, I won't be tired just sitting and doing this light work. After everything is done, it's time to light the fire. Kui Kinkai said, "Sister-in-law, I will help you light the fire." "No, no need." Looking at how thin Kui Kinkai looked, Zhang Ziluo was really reluctant to let her help light the fire. "Just rest." "Sister-in-law, I can't be tired, I want to do something." Kui Kinkai talked about her sister-in-law, and looking at her with such beautiful eyes, she was a little unable to resist. "Well, slow down, don't hurt your hand." Actually, Zhang Ziluo thought to herself, she didn't know if Kui Kinkai would light a fire. Kui Kinkai naturally knows how to make fire. The Pei family's maid does not treat her as a wife, and the meals she brings are only leftovers. Fortunately, she had a separate small kitchen in her yard, and she learned how to make a fire and heat meals by herself. So she can burn firewood. Mrs. Kui was worried that she wouldn't be able to light a fire. Just as she was about to say something, she saw that Qing Si had already lit the fire and started burning the firewood. Mrs. Kui's heart felt sour again as she looked at her familiar movements. Although she didn't say anything about her love for porcelain, she knew that being able to learn to make fire meant that she had endured hardships in the Pei family. If this were not the case, how could a big family allow the young lady of the family to cook the food herself? Zhang Ziluo looked at her actions and couldn't help but think of the old lady of the Pei family. She was really a cruel and vicious old woman. Zhang Ziluo saw that the pot was hot, so she put some sugar into the pot. Then stir with a spoon to melt the sugar. Pour in the apricots and cook for a while. After the apricots are fully coated with sugar juice, take them out and put them in a jar. After a while, take a basin of well water, put the jar in the well water and refrigerate it, and you can eat it the next day. When the weather gets hotter and the peach trees on the mountain behind us mature, we can also use the peaches to make canned food. It will be very comfortable to eat a canned food that is sweet and refreshing. This is the first time Kui Kinkai has heard of canned food. That's how it was originally done. Mrs. Kui said, "Ziluo, from those apricot trees behind our house, will the apricots be canned when they are ripe? You will definitely not be able to finish eating." Zhang Ziluo said, "We can make preserved fruits and jam. Preserved fruits can be eaten as snacks, and jam can be dipped in when we eat steamed buns or make cakes." Kui Kinkai was stunned. Can she still make apricot jam? This is also the first time she has heard of it. It turns out that one kind of food can be used to make many kinds of delicacies. She smelled the sweet fragrance emanating from the pot, and her heart felt gently healed. She could not describe in words the sense of relaxation and security in body and mind. No need to hold tight anymore. It feels so good to be relaxed. When Kui Hejin came home and saw the warm and harmonious scene of the Zhao family, her heart was slightly touched. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 243. The moment he returned home and saw his family, the coldness around Kui Hejin dissipated. A feeling of warmth surged into my heart. His whole body relaxed involuntarily. This is the feeling of home, the most heartwarming thing. When Zhang Ziluo carried the jar and walked to the yard, she suddenly saw Kui Hejin. Zhang Ziluo said with a bright smile, "Back. Second sister is awake, please go in and have a look. We will make dinner later. Is there anything you want to eat?" Kui Hejin looked gentle, with a watery look in his eyes, and whispered, anything is fine. He knows that everything she cooks is delicious. Zhang Ziluo thought for a while and said, then let's make noodles. The noodles are light and can be eaten by my second sister. Good. Zhang Ziluo finished talking to Kui Hejin and was about to take a basin to scoop out well water. There is a water jar in the kitchen house and a water jar in the yard, both with water in them. The water in the water tank in the house is used for cooking, and the water in the water tank in the yard is used for washing and washing vegetables. Because it is convenient to wash up in the yard. Kui Hejin reached out and gently grabbed her. What's wrong? Zhang Ziluo hugged the jar and almost dropped it to the ground. It's okay, my hair is messed up. Speaking, Kui Hejin arranged Zhang Ziluo's hair carefully. Profound. Zhang Ziluo obediently let him sort it out. Are you ready? Well, that's it. Kui Hejin had a tender look in his eyes, and the emotion in his eyes came out little by little. But Zhang Ziluo didn't pay attention to this. Her mind was filled with things like canned apricots and apricot jam. After hearing what he said, Zhang Ziluo hurriedly turned around and went to work. Kui Hejin sighed softly and reluctantly put his hands away. Kui Qingkai watched the scene in the stove room, her eyes widened in shock. Isn't it? Her eldest brother really has such a gentle side? Could this be what the script says is 100 refining steel, turning the fingers around and making them soft? It really subverted her cognition. Her eldest brother is such a quiet person, but he is so gentle and considerate. If those noble ladies in the capital knew what my eldest brother was like, I don't know how crazy they would be. Fortunately, when I was in the capital before, my eldest brother was cold and indifferent and always seemed to keep others away from me. It actually avoided a lot of trouble. Mrs. Kui is used to it. Her son has finally enlightened and knows how to treat Ziluo. She wished that Hejin would be nicer to Ziluo, even better. Kui Qingkai saw her eldest brother entering the room and shouted politely, brother. When Kui Qingkai faced her elder brother, she was still a little restrained instinctively. Since childhood, the eldest brother has always been cold and self-possessed, and he is a role model for everyone in the family. They have never dared to make a mistake in front of their elder brother since they were young. Kui Hejin glanced at his sister and whispered, your sister-in-law is very good at medicine. You should take good care of your health at home. Don't worry about anything else. Kui Qingkai understood what her elder brother meant and was a little amused. Her eldest brother was emphasizing his sister-in-law's status in front of her. She nodded and said, yeah, okay. To reassure her eldest brother, she added something from her heart, brother, I also like my sister-in-law quite a bit. After Kui Qingkai woke up and spent a day with Zhang Ziluo, she couldn't help but like her sister-in-law. She has a kind of magic power that can make people feel peaceful and comfortable. Not to mention that my mother told her a lot about her sister-in-law. She admired him even more. Kui Hejin was slightly startled, which was not surprising. He nodded slightly, yeah. Have a peaceful stay at home. Ziluo also told him before that he would let Qingkai live at home from now on. The house has many rooms and there is room to live. Good. Mrs. Kui is used to the way their brother and sister get along. They talk very little. She felt that it was thanks to Ziluo and Hejin being together. With Hejin's temperament, if he were to marry a high-ranking daughter in the capital according to the principle of being well-matched, and the two of them would treat each other as if they were guests, they wouldn't be able to say a few words. Perhaps Hejin is willing to talk more only in front of Ziluo. Ziluo has a very good temperament and can talk a lot in front of Hexin. She looks warm and never runs out of things to say. To make noodles, Zhang Ziluo thought about picking some vegetables in the garden and making soup noodles in a pot. She had made pickled cabbage noodles before, but this time she wanted to make them in a different way. As for yang chun noodles, Mrs. Kui and others must have tasted it in the capital. It's better to do something else. Looking at the cabbage beans in the yard, Zhang Ziluo thought to herself, it would be great if there were tomatoes. With this thought in mind, Zhang Ziluo took advantage of the opportunity to enter the room and went into the space to take a look. I actually saw tomatoes in the space wooden house. Master, this is a space reward. Zhang Ziluo saw the space elf Xiaolan and said with a smile, why are you coming out now? You don't have to sleep anymore. Master, your wood-type supernatural powers have become stronger now. I absorbed these powers and woke up. Although Zhang Ziluo is busy doing business and making money every day and is busy with many things, she also seizes the time to enhance her wood power every day. Fortunately, this is a purely natural environment, which is suitable for her to absorb the natural breath and enhance the wood-type abilities. Zhang Ziluo held the tomato and said, what's going on with this tomato? It means what ingredients are produced in the space depending on what the owner thinks about. Then I want a watermelon now, can I conjure a watermelon? She knew from the memory in her mind that there were no watermelons here at all, so if it was very hot in summer, there would be no watermelons to eat. Space Elf Xylan said, then the reward will not appear in the space until next month when the master thinks about it. Zhang Ziluo said, does it mean that you can only get rewards once a month? Sometimes it's 2 months, and there will be a reward every 1 or 2 months. Zhang Ziluo thought that next month, or when summer comes next month, she can get watermelons from space. It's just summer, so you can't temporarily plant watermelons, but you can save the watermelon seeds and plant them in the next spring. Okay, let's just use tomatoes this time. I have tomatoes that I can use to make tomato soup noodles. You can also grow tomatoes and eat them in the summer. It can be eaten cold with sugar. Suddenly, Zhang Ziluo's expression changed. She discovered that there was half an acre of land in the space field. It was only 2 acres of land before. Zhang Ziluo thought that when she was sleeping at night, she would go into the space and plant tomatoes on this half-acre of land while no one was paying attention. Zhang Ziluo had a conversation with Xylan, came out of the space, and took the tomatoes to the yard to wash them. This is how to make tomato noodle soup. Add eggs to make tomato noodle soup that tastes better. You can also make scrambled eggs with tomatoes tomorrow. The eggs fried with tomatoes are more delicious. She can also make ketchup from tomatoes. You can eat fried chicken legs and chicken pieces dipped in tomato sauce. There are also French fries. When selling bread in the future, French fries can be added. But the potatoes must be mature before you can make French fries. Kui Kinkai came out of the house and wanted to do something to help Zhang Ziluo, but when she saw her washing red fruits in the basin, she was stunned and said, sister-in-law, is this a wild fruit in the mountains? The red ones look very sweet. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 244. Zhang Ziluo felt relieved when she saw Kui Kinkai looking good. Thinking of Kui Kinkai I saw in my dream, she was really strong. Zhang Ziluo also quite appreciates this kind of temperament, which is better than crying. Zhang Ziluo explained with a smile, this is called a tomato, also called a tomato. It is both a fruit and a vegetable. It can be eaten directly or cooked into soup. Would you like to try one first? Kui Kinkai shook her head and said, no, let's wait for dinner in the evening. Zhang Ziluo said, I just made tomato soup noodles in the evening. The taste is different from Yangchun noodles. The main thing is the soup. Wash it out first and keep it for later use. Cut out the noodles first. In this era, there were no noodle machines, so the noodles were rolled out by hand. In fact, hand-rolled noodles taste more delicious. Kui Kinkai said, sister-in-law, let me help you. Zhang Ziluo said, if you don't mind, just help light the fire later. Slicing noodles is different from making dumplings and buns. Everyone can share the profits and cooperate. Making noodles means kneading the dough, rolling out thinly sliced noodles from a whole piece of dough. Mrs. Kui knew that Ziluo was going to make noodles at night. She had already put noodles and eggs in the basin and started kneading the noodles. Gangs Hailao. After cutting the tomatoes, prepare the seasoning. Then cut a cross shape on the tomato and blanch it in boiling hot water. Kui Kinkai watched carefully from the side. As soon as the hot water is boiled, the skin of the tomato can be peeled off easily. Then cut it into small pieces on the cutting board and put it into a small basin after cutting. Cut the onions and coriander well and put them on a plate for later use. She took out 4 more eggs and put them aside. After finishing all these tasks, Mrs. Kui has already kneaded the dough. Zhang Ziluo took out a large board and placed it, then kneaded the dough and cut the noodles. Her movements are very fast and her knife skills are very good. The noodles she rolls out are very thin and the noodles she cuts are also very thin, and each one is evenly thick. Kui Kinkai was amazed as she looked at it. I feel that such knife skills cannot be mastered overnight. The speed is so fast that it is even like an after-image. After being amazed, Kui Kinkai was stunned for a moment and thought, my sister-in-law must not have martial arts. Zhang Ziluo naturally didn't know what Kui Kinkai was thinking. But if she is interested in cooking, she can also take a look and learn it. At least it should taste good if you cook it yourself. After cutting the noodles, Zhang Ziluo replaced them with noodles and placed them on the grate. The next step is to make tomato soup. Ziluo, can you cook these noodles in a pot? Well, mother, let's make a pot, so we use 2 pots at the same time, one for making soup and one for cooking noodles. Mrs. Kui understood immediately when she heard it. Well, then I'll light the fire. Kui Kinkai hurriedly said, I'll do it. She wanted to find something to do, but she would feel bad if she didn't do anything and just waited to eat. Mrs. Kui said, I'll light the fire, and you can watch your sister-in-law make the soup. Being able to cook is also a kind of ability. You are not afraid of it no matter where you go. People in the village often say that craftsmen will not die of hunger in a famine year. This cooking skill is also a craft skill. Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, well, if you have many skills, you won't be overwhelmed. If you are willing to learn, just learn. If you don't want to learn, don't learn. Just be happy. Kui Kinkai was stunned for a moment when he heard these words. It's okay to be happy? Such a simple truth and such a simple sentence, she had never heard it before. Kui Kinkai was slightly moved in her heart and nodded, okay. The things she experienced in the Pei Mansion also made her understand that learning more skills is useful at any time. She cooked in the small kitchen in the Pei Mansion's courtyard. At first she could only heat rice. Even a bowl of porridge she made was unpalatable. At that time, she didn't care whether it tasted good or not, she just wanted to be full and survive. Just fine. In this way, Mrs. Kui looked at the 2 pots at the same time, sat on the horse, burned some firewood on this stove, and put some firewood on that stove. Of course, you can use the bellows to boil the noodles in the pot. How to quickly boil the pot? To make soup, the pot should be cooked slowly. Zhang Ziluo break the eggs into a bowl and stir. After stirring, put oil in the pot. Pour the stirred egg liquid into the oil pan. When the edges of the eggs are slightly solidified, slide them gently with a spatula. When the egg liquid is completely solidified, quickly scoop it out and put it in a bowl for later use. Then reheat the pan, add oil, add minced garlic and ginger, and fry in the pan. After frying for a while, the aroma will come out. Then add the chopped tomatoes. Because the tomatoes are cut into smaller pieces, it is easier to make tomato soup. Kui Kinkai looked on blankly for a moment. It turns out that making soup is so particular. She thought that just pouring water and boiling things would be enough. After the tomatoes are fried until soft, continue to stir fry. After the tomato soup comes out, add sugar, pepper, and some soy sauce. Stir it, add egg cubes, and add salt. Add an appropriate amount of water and cook for a while, then add a little starch to make the soup thicker. The pot is boiling on the other side, and the noodles are in it. After the noodles are cooked, take them out and put the noodles in a large bowl. These large bowls were bought by Exiled specifically for eating noodles and soup. You can only feel comfortable eating noodles with a big bowl. There is also a special large spoon for drinking soup. Then pour the cooked tomato and egg soup into bowls, sprinkle some sesame oil and chopped green onion, and 4 large bowls of tomato and egg soup noodles are ready. Okay, now you can eat. Ms. Kui said, I have never seen this kind of noodle soup before. Even the soup is red. It looks delicious. Just looking at this color makes me want to eat noodles. Zhang Ziluo said, when the weather gets hot in summer, we will make cold noodles. Cold noodles. Kui Qingkai felt that she couldn't understand anything. Ms. Kui is already used to it. It doesn't matter if she doesn't understand it. You'll know what it is when Ziluo makes it. Don't think about it, it must be a good thing. Kui Qingkai helped put bowls of noodles on the table, and Ms. Kui went to wash her hands. Zhang Ziluo went into the house and asked Kui Hejin to eat. Husband, it's time for dinner. When Zhang Ziluo passed by, she saw Kui Hejin reading a miscellaneous book of unofficial history. He looked a little solemn. She felt that since the second sister came to the house, Kui Hejin looked worried. Kui Hejin put down the book, stood up and said warmly, okay. Zhang Ziluo blinked and looked at him, and said worriedly, are you worried? Kui Hejin said calmly, it's okay. Zhang Ziluo stretched out her hand to gently smooth Kui Hejin's eyebrows and said, you obviously have something on your mind. Kui Hejin gently grabbed Zhang Ziluo's hand and said, don't worry, I'm just thinking about my second sister. Are you worried about the second sister? As long as my second sister is at home, I will protect her. Her wood power has been enhanced now, so she should have no problem protecting her second sister. Kui Hejin looked at her clear eyebrows, his heart softened, and he stretched out his hand to gently hug her into his arms. Zhang Ziluo was stunned for a moment. She leaned in Kui Hejin's arms and could clearly hear his heartbeat. Her heart also beat rapidly. Uncontrolled heartbeat. Fool, you have to take care of yourself first. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 245. At this moment, when Kui Hejin saw Zhang Ziluo, he wanted to hug her. Having this strong idea in my mind, I did it uncontrollably. The moment he held her in his arms, Kui Hejin felt his restless heart suddenly calm down. Hearing what Kui Hejin said, Zhang Ziluo also reached out and hugged him back. At this moment, she felt something heavy pressing on him, which made her feel distressed. Like the previous life, he hid his thoughts very deeply and never said them out. Zhang Ziluo could only comfort him and said, well, I know, don't worry, we will all be fine. Don't think too much. Let's go eat first. I've made the noodles, tomato and egg noodle soup. I've never made them before. Try it and see how it tastes. Eat a full meal and you will feel better. Although he didn't say anything, Zhang Ziluo guessed that it was related to Kui Qingkai. Perhaps he knows something about the Pei family. The Pei family should have done something sorry for Kui Qingkai. The reason behind it is nothing more than interests involved. Now that the Kui family can't provide the Pei family with benefits, the Pei family can naturally abandon Kui Qingkai easily. Even if Mrs. Pei is a good person, Mrs. Pei and the rest of the Pei family will regard Kui Qingkai as a roadblock. Kui Hejin's father and grandfather are gone, and now he shoulders the responsibility of the Kui family. He will feel that he is unable to protect his sister. When Kui Hejin and Zhang Ziluo came out of the house and came to the living room, Kui Qingkai carefully noticed that there were wrinkles on the clothes of her eldest brother and sister-in-law. Her eyes suddenly widened. No, her eldest brother is the most ascetic, a person who restrains himself and returns to etiquette. How could he not restrain himself? It seems that my mother is right, the eldest brother really likes his sister-in-law. After the two people sat down, the family began to eat. Mrs. Kui ate the noodles and eggs and said, "This tomato and egg noodle soup is delicious, and it is better made with ziluo. Even if you make noodles, you can change them to create different tastes. Especially the eggs here are particularly delicious, probably because of the tomato flavor." Kui Kinkai was also amazed by the taste of the food. Eating a bite of this kind of noodles will make you feel comfortable both physically and mentally. She couldn't help but sigh. No wonder mom thinks it's good to live in the country. Eating delicious food in different ways every day is really healing for the soul. At this moment, Kui Kinkai could think of nothing but the bowl of noodles in front of her. It's really delicious. My sister-in-law's cooking skills are very good. Zhang Ziluo looked at Kui Hejin and said, "How is it?" Kui Hejin took it into his mouth, nodded and said, "Yeah, not bad." Zhang Ziluo then happily ate. She found that the Kui family seemed to eat quickly, but they were very elegant, and they ate noodles without making any noise. This is a good upbringing that is ingrained in one's bones. The four of us were very full. Kui Kinkai discovered that this is what it feels like for a family to eat delicious food. After eating a full meal, the body feels warm and comfortable. I remember that when she ate, she was always half full. Even if she was hungry, she could not pick up food. She had to pay attention to etiquette and didn't care whether she was full or not. For her, eating at that time was just to fill her stomach, not enjoyment at all. When she came here, although she only had 3 meals, she realized that it was really relaxing here. After having a full meal, Mrs. Kui cleaned up the dishes and boiled water, while Zhang Ziluo boiled medicine. After boiling the medicine, let Kui Kinkai drink the medicine and then let her take a medicinal bath. Fortunately, there is a special bathroom at home, with a bathtub that she had someone build. He boiled hot water and poured it into the tub, then put the medicine bag she had prepared. After finishing it, Zhang Ziluo said, "You just drank the medicine and went into the medicinal bath. It's a little hot, but you have to endure it and come out after 2/4 of an hour, and then take a shower again." Good. Kui Kinkai now trusts Zhang Ziluo's medical skills. She will do whatever she asks her to do. After Zhang Ziluo went out, Kui Kinkai started taking a medicinal bath. As soon as she entered the barrel, she felt that the water was very hot and her whole body felt a burning pain, but she endured it. Slowly, Kui Kinkai felt a little more comfortable. She leaned on the barrel and persisted. Later, when Kui Kinkai opened her eyes, she found that the water in the bathtub had turned black. She turned pale with shock. What's going on? Although she was confused, Kui Kinkai insisted on coming out after 2/4 of an hour, changed to clean hot water and took a bath again, and then she packed up and went out to find Zhang Ziluo. Kui Kinkai was a little embarrassed to ask questions. Zhang Ziluo said, "Second sister has doubts in her heart." Well, the water turned very dark after the medicinal bath. Zhang Ziluo said, "That's the poison expelled from your body. Do you feel lighter?" Kui Kinkai felt it carefully and found that her body was indeed much lighter. Is this a process of removing toxins? It feels much lighter, thank you sister-in-law. In fact, the water of the medicated bath not only contains the medicinal package, but also contains most of the spiritual spring water, which is more effective. Second sister, you were given a chronic poison 2 years ago. This poison is silent and will cause you to become seriously ill and die silently, and the doctor won't be able to see any problems. I'm very surprised 2 years ago, nothing happened to the Kui family. If you entered the Pei family at that time, who would kill you? Originally Zhang Ziluo didn't want to ask any more questions, but seeing Kui Hejin looking worried, she also wanted to know more so that she could help Kui Hejin. Kui Kinkai looked up at the sky, laughed to herself and said, "Probably Mr. Pei's cousin." Kui Kinkai doesn't even call Pei Nanshan by his name now. Cousin, are you a relative of MagicalSpace family? Kui Kinkai was even surprised. Sister-in-law, you. There is only one cousin in the house, and that is the grandniece of the old lady's mother-in-law. She has a childhood sweetheart relationship with Mr. Pei. She looks very gentle, but in fact she is very good at hiding it. She grew up in the Kui family, which didn't have so many intrigues. When she went to the Pei family, she didn't put up much defense. It was only after she suffered a loss that she understood some truth. Zhang Ziluo said, "This is the White Lotus." Kui Kinkai was stunned for a moment. White Lotus? Oh, she is the kind of person who only pretends to be weak but is actually ruthless. When something happens, if she cries and pretends to be wronged, men will easily believe her and think that you are unreasonable and vicious. She will also resort to cruelty and tricks. I directed and acted to frame you. Kui Kinkai was simply shocked. Sister-in-law, you, how do you know so clearly? Zhang Ziluo looked at Kui Kinkai's expression and probably understood what was going on. You guessed it, it's a big family, that's what family fights are all about. In modern times, if you read various TV series and novels about palace fights and house fights, you can naturally understand some of them. Don't worry, my sister-in-law will help you vent your anger. In this era, there is no video or evidence. No one would believe that a seemingly weak and kind-hearted woman is actually cruel. Kui Kinkai's eyes were slightly hot and she said, "Sister-in-law, don't take risks for me. It's all over. It's okay." Everyone feels sorry for her and everyone believes what she said. Zhang Ziluo said, "Then break everyone's understanding. In everyone's mind, a weak and sick woman is a pitiful and kind-hearted woman. If everyone knew that this kind of woman is the most ruthless, they would doubt her words." Kui Kinkai was shocked. Looking at Zhang Ziluo's confident and indifferent expression, she was stunned and blurted out involuntarily, "Sister-in-law, do you have any idea? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fengyuan Candy. Chapter 246. After blurting out these words, Kui Kinkai realized something was wrong, and she hurriedly said, "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry, I don't want to involve you. Now I have nothing to do with the Pei family, my sister-in-law doesn't have to do anything for me." It was hard for a cold-hearted person like her eldest brother to find someone who cared about her. She should also protect her sister-in-law like her eldest brother, instead of letting her take risks. Zhang Ziluo smiled and said, "It's okay, I don't need to show up. The method is very simple, that is, write a story and find a theater troupe to perform it. If the storyteller tells it, it would be best to make it a household name in Nanzhou. Everyone will know that a woman who pretends to be weak can also be a ruthless woman. Everyone, the story in the play reminds me that if a woman like this speaks again, everyone will think carefully about it." Although Zhang Ziluo smiled, thinking of the old lady of the Pei family who wanted to kill Kui Kinkai in the dream, and thinking of the poison on Kui Kinkai, her eyes filled with frost like murderous intent. Just like in modern times, because of the development of the internet and the dissemination of a lot of information through TV series, movies, and videos, both men and women know what White Lotus and green tea are. Just because a woman is weak and sick, you will not preconceptions that she is kind and pitiful. She wanted to write the play in a thrilling way. Although she would not name who it was, the story could reveal that the old lady of the Pei family exposed the cousin. She wanted to use this method to get some interest back for Kui Kinkai first. Since she thought about it this way, Zhang Ziluo thought she would find time to write a storybook tonight. Kui Kinkai was simply shocked when she heard Zhang Ziluo's words. "Sister-in-law, can you write a storybook?" In Kui Kinkai's view, those are things that only knowledgeable people can write. Of course, even if they are knowledgeable, the script cannot be written by ordinary people. What's more, many scholars don't study the scripts. There are only a few stories in the opera troupe and tea house that attract people. Some of the stories are so bland that no one likes to hear them. Zhang Ziluo raised her eyebrows and said, "Is this difficult? She is really not Versailles." In modern times, she once disguised herself as a screenwriter in order to complete a task. It's natural to write these. It wasn't that Kui Kinkai found it difficult, but she thought that her sister-in-law grew up in the countryside and could neither read nor write. She is stupid. And this method has to be said to be really good. She just couldn't figure it out. She thought to herself that if someone like her sister-in-law lived in an environment like the Pei family, she would live very well. She is the truly smart person. No matter what the circumstances, she will live a good life. Sister-in-law, thank you. We are all family, don't be polite. Since she regards Kui Kinkai as her own family, Zhang Ziluo naturally wants to protect her. Zhang Ziluo said, "Whenever you want to tell me, just tell me. Taking good care of your body is the most important thing now. Revenge will be avenged one day." Looking at Zhang Ziluo's confident and calm expression, Kui Kinkai's mood became lighter for some reason. She nodded vigorously, "Yeah. I was unprepared at the beginning, but when she came to see me, she seemed to have stepped on a key point every time. She was injured every time. If Pei Nanshan saw it, Pei Nanshan would think that I was deliberately embarrassing Lu Qiu'er, and even felt. The first time they quarreled was because of Lu Qiu'er. Kui Kinkai didn't want to mention Lu Qiu'er at all. Kui Kinkai's eyes turned red when she thought of the past. Kui Kinkai clenched her fingers tightly. Zhang Ziluo stretched out her hand and held Kui Kinkai's hand and said, "Let's not talk about it for now. You'd better not have big mood swings as you take care of your health now. We'll talk about it later, don't be in a hurry. Don't think about these, think more about happy things. When I go back to the village market, I will take you to the market to see the excitement in the village." "Okay." Zhang Ziluo comforted Kui Kinkai and let her sleep. Zhang Ziluo also returned to the room after washing up. Zhang Ziluo was not in a hurry to go to sleep. Instead, she took out some paper on the table and prepared to write a drama story. Although Kui Kinkai didn't say much, Zhang Ziluo could also write it based on guesses. The frame-up drama is just that. After Kui Hejin washed up and entered the house, he sat down with his hair still wet and said, "What are you busy with? Write something." Zhang Ziluo raised her head as she spoke, as if thinking of something, and said, "Who do you think doesn't want my second sister to live, if it's not the Pei family?" Kui Hejin said, "The princes have grown up and have begun to fight for power. Although the Pei family is not as famous as their ancestors, a skinny camel is bigger than a horse, and the Pei family also has a certain influence." As soon as she heard these words, Zhang Ziluo understood, so, this is also related to the political struggle. Let me guess, which prince must have won over the Pei family, and the Pei family also wants to take advantage of the situation to make a comeback. If someone has the power to follow the dragon, the Pei family will be able to rise up in one fell swoop, and may even hold power. Ordinary cooperative relationships are not strong, and the strongest relationship is marriage. Thinking of this, Zhang Ziluo's eyes widened. Isn't it going to be a marriage? The prince marries the daughter of the Pei family. But Kui Kinkai doesn't have any influence. At most, the current emperor doesn't like the Pei family because of their relationship with the Kui family, but it won't have any influence on the princes. Zhang Ziluo was thinking, and suddenly a light flashed in her mind. Could it be that she is not the daughter of the Pei family, but the man of the Pei family, Pei Nanshan? Suddenly thinking of this, Zhang Ziluo's face turned pale. No wonder someone in his sleep said that Kui Kinkai was ordered to die. If you were a princess, it would be easy to kill Kui Kinkai. As long as you talk, the Pei family would have to cooperate if they wanted to be rich and prosperous. Even a princess can't be so domineering. Kui Hejin looked at Zhang Ziluo with gentle and admiring eyes. His little wife was really smart. A few clues can reveal the whole picture. Princess Jiamin has always had a domineering temperament and will do whatever it takes to achieve her goals. I learned that Pei Nanchen went to the capital to study at the Imperial Academy. If he fails the scientific examination next year, he will most likely enter the Hanlin Academy. Enter the Hanlin Academy and then qualify to join the cabinet. The Pei family's ambitions are not small. Furthermore, in this era, there were no restrictions on the position of a prince-in-law, and climbing to the royal family would be of greater help to his official career. Zhang Ziluo's lips curved into a sarcastic arc. In this case, Pei Nanchen is not worthy of my second sister's nostalgia, and there is no need to even remember him. There's no need to write a playbook. It's best for the princess and Pei Nanchen's cousin to have a good fight. Zhang Ziluo didn't want to help the princess deal with Pei Nanchen's cousin Lu Qiu'er. You still want to write a playbook? Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, yes, Pei Nanchen has a cousin who looks so sick, weak, and kind, but is actually ruthless. Such people are not easy to deal with, but if we use a playbook, more people can know that such people are not what they seem. But now, if the princess intervenes, let them fight. They are not good people anyway. Kui Hejin was deeply touched. He looked at Zhang Ziluo with a swirling look in his eyes, as if there was some restrained emotion in it, as if it wanted to swallow the person up. Zhang Ziluo seemed to have thought of something. She looked up at Kui Hejin and couldn't help but ask, if you saw a weak and beautiful woman, would you also think that she is kind and believe what she says? The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 247. Zhang Ziluo didn't even realize that when she said these words, she felt a sour feeling in her heart. She just blinked and looked at Kui Hejin. Kui Hejin's eyes softened, he looked at her funny, and then stretched out his hand to pull her over. Zhang Ziluo was pulled into Kui Hejin's arms in a daze. By the time she came to her senses, she was already sitting in Kui Hejin's arms. At this time, the two people were very close to each other, and Zhang Ziluo could smell the elegant and pleasant scent of Kui Hejin. Kui Hejin put his arms around Zhang Ziluo and looked down at her. His beautiful, picturesque eyes revealed a clear and shallow smile, which seemed to have a bewitching aura. So gentle and affectionate. Like the moon falling into a green pool, crushing a pool of spring water. When Zhang Ziluoguang saw Kui Hejin's eyes, her heart beat uncontrollably, beating a little fast. When he looked at her like this, she suddenly felt nervous and her throat felt dry. She can't stand him like this. Kui Hejin stretched out his hand to caress Zhang Ziluo's hair, feeling like he couldn't put it down. After a while, Kui Hejin said quietly in a clear voice, there can be no such person, only you. Zhang Ziluo's head buzzed. It feels as if something hits the heartstrings all of a sudden. What does he mean by this? Why didn't she understand it all of a sudden? Zhang Ziluo looked at Kui Hejin's beautiful and charming face, which was as beautiful as a painting, and felt that it was like a fairy or a demon, which was fascinating. Her mind was in a trance. You and I. She wanted to say something, but her mind went blank. At this time, Zhang Ziluo didn't even realize that she had black hair like a waterfall, icy muscles and jade bones, no makeup, dark eyebrows like willows, bright eyes like water, cheeks flushed, as drunk as shy, more like the morning glow reflecting the snow, delicate and bright. So beautiful and gorgeous, under the lamp, it is even more as soft as jade and flowers. The beauty is hazy, and like a fairy in the night, specializing in seducing the soul. Kui Hejin looked at her, his eyes getting darker and darker, as if his ice-like eyes were filled with blazing flames. His slender jade-like fingers gently touched Zhang Ziluo's cheek, bringing a slightly cool touch that made Zhang Ziluo's eyelashes tremble and her voice softened, crane hibiscus. Be good, don't move. Kui Hejin's fingers seemed to be filled with heat, scalding hot. Zhang Ziluo was wearing thin clothes at night, and she felt as if his palms were burning her skin through the thin clothes. There is even an indescribable electric shock that hits my heart. Kui Hejin gently stroked her eyebrows with his fingers, gradually moving downwards and landing on her lips. When his fingertips caressed it, it felt ambiguous and confusing. Kui Hejin's throat rolled slightly, as if he was restraining something. Zhang Ziluo's heart beat faster. Zhang Ziluo's eyelashes trembled and she wanted to close her eyes. She didn't know what to expect. But at this moment, Kui Hejin slowly hugged her and buried his head in her neck. "Be good, just let me hold you for a while." Zhang Ziluo was really motionless. She couldn't guess his emotions, let alone his thoughts. Obviously ambiguous but sober. Zhang Ziluo also closed her eyes and suppressed the complicated emotions in her heart. When I opened my eyes again, everything was clear and clear. By the way, we just talked about the second sister's affairs. Do you really think you don't have to worry about the Pei family's affairs anymore? Zhang Ziluo said this to divert attention and get off Kui Hejin's lap. But Kui Hejin wouldn't let go of her and just held her like this. "Don't worry about it yet." While saying these words, a dark and dangerous cold light flashed across Kui Hejin's eyes. He has his own plans for some things. Since the Pei family has boarded the eldest prince's boat, the second prince will not let the Pei family become the eldest prince's help. The Pei family is already in a whirlpool, and it doesn't matter if the second sister comes out. Has the second sister had nothing to do with the Pei family? Mrs. Pei has ghostwritten the letter of separation and given it to the second sister. The rest of the Pei family probably don't know about it. While Zhang Ziluo was boiling the medicine, Kui Hejin had a conversation with Kui Qingkai and learned some important information that should be known. When Zhang Ziluo heard this, her expression changed. "So Mrs. Pei is good." Back then, Mrs. Pei was plotted against and almost died at the hands of bandits. It was her father who saved her. This matter involved the woman's reputation, so no one knew about it, not even the Pei family. Maybe Mrs. Pei remembered this kindness, so Pei Madam is equivalent to repaying this kindness. I see. After Zhang Ziluo and Kui Hejin had a conversation, Zhang Ziluo felt a little sleepy and leaned in Kui Hejin's arms lazily, not wanting to move. Kui Hejin looked down at her and said softly, "Are you sleepy?" Zhang Ziluo nodded. With a gentle look on his face, Kui Hejin stood up and picked her up, then put her on the bed and carefully took off her shoes. Looking at Kui Hejin's careful and gentle movements, Zhang Ziluo's heart filled with blue water. "Husband. What's wrong?" Zhang Ziluo looked at him deeply and said, "You take care of me like this. What if one day I'm not around you and you don't get used to it?" "Well." Just as Zhang Ziluo finished speaking, she suddenly felt a pain in her ankle. It was only then that Kui Hejin noticed that when he was taking off one of her shoes, he accidentally hurt her ankle with force. "I'm sorry, does it hurt?" There was a sense of pity and care in his voice. Speaking, Kui Hejin wanted to show her. "No, it's okay." Kui Hejin took off her shoes and checked her feet. Zhang Ziluo is strangely embarrassed. Kui Hejin checked her carefully to make sure her feet were fine, then sat down by the bed and looked at her intently. After a while, Yu said, "Then just stay by my side, and you won't get used to it." Zhang Ziluo was lying down at this time, using the candlelight to see Kui Hejin's eyes. For some reason, his deep eyes seemed to be filled with a sense of sadness, and they seemed to be filled with thunder and lightning, as if they were filled with raging fire and were about to burn her. Zhang Ziluo's heart trembled. In fact, from the fact that she always dreamed about the Wei family's affairs, she had a vague guess in her mind that her parents might be hiding something from her. She even thought about what she would do if she was really related to the Wei family. With her temperament, she would definitely not ignore the Wei family's grievances. If she wants to do anything, she definitely doesn't want to implicate Kui Hejin. At that time, after she healed Kui Hejin, she would do what she should do and assume the responsibilities she should bear. Zhang Ziluo felt an uncontrollable pain in her heart when she met Kui Hejin's eyes. But with the lessons learned from that life in ancient times, Zhang Ziluo will not put Kui Hejin in danger in this life no matter what. As long as you are good to him and can protect him, you can do anything. Zhang Ziluo pretended not to understand what he said and said softly, "Do you still remember what you said the night we just got married? Why did you forget it so quickly?" Kui Hejin grabbed Zhang Ziluo's wrist hard, as if this was the only way to hold her tightly. "I'm sorry, if you mind that day, I'll take it back." Kui Hejin is good at hiding his emotions and not good at speaking his mind, but at this moment, his dark and painful eyes seem to have expressed his inner emotions. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 248. Chapter 248 Pear Blossoms and Rain, First Update. Kui Hejin looked deeply at Zhang Ziluo with his picturesque eyes, which contained a dark whirlpool, as if Zhang Ziluo was being swallowed up. His hand held Zhang Ziluo's hand tightly. But he also carefully controlled the intensity, for fear of hurting Zhang Ziluo. Looking at Kui Hejin like this, Zhang Ziluo's heart softened. Because of the memory of her previous life, she still couldn't bear to see him anxious and unhappy. She pretended to smile lightly and said, "Okay, I'm kidding you. It's getting late and you've been tired for the whole day, go to bed quickly." With that said, Zhang Ziluo moved into the bed, patted the side of the bed, and asked Kui Hejin to come up. After Kui Hejin went to bed and lay down, Zhang Ziluo breathed a sigh of relief. Just now, Kui Hejin felt a strong sense of oppression. Zhang Ziluo relaxed on the bed and fell asleep soon. Kui Hejin heard Zhang Ziluo's shallow breathing and knew that she was asleep. He was not sleepy at all. He turned slightly and looked at her, using the starlight coming through the window lattice to see her appearance clearly. He sat up slowly and looked at her seriously. After a while, he tucked her back and sighed softly, "What should I do with you?" Zhang Ziluo didn't know this at all, she was fast asleep. Only this night Zhang Ziluo came to Pei's house again in her sleep and saw the scene in Pei's house. But the scene I saw this time seemed to be further back, when Kui Qingkai and Pei Nanchen had just gotten married. Because at this time, all the servants in the mansion were respectful to Kui Qingkai, and no one dared to make any mistakes. Kui Qingkai's eyebrows are also very bright. It can be seen that she had a good life in the Pei family at the beginning. Just when Kui Qingkai was reading, someone reported that it was her cousin who came to visit her. Although Kui Qingkai was confused, she still let the cousin Lu Qiu'er come in to see what was going on with her. "Qiu'er meets my cousin-in-law." Lu Qiu'er was wearing a plain long dress, looking frail, and bowed to Kui Qingkai. Seeing this scene, Zhang Ziluo also saw Lu Qiu'er's appearance clearly. This Lu Qiu'er had a melon seed face and was somewhat beautiful. In addition, she was wearing a plain white dress and looked weak, making it easy for people to pity her. But in terms of beauty and magnanimity, she is naturally incomparable to Kui Qingkai. Kui Qingkai has a kind nature and does not think bad things about people. She also thinks that the Pei family is as harmonious as the Kui family. She said, "My cousin, there is no need to be polite. What's the matter with my cousin's visit?" Lu Qiu'er whispered, "It's okay, I just want to talk to my cousin." Kui Qingkai asked people to serve tea, water, and snacks to entertain Lu Qiu'er. When Zhang Ziluo saw this, she frowned and looked wary. This Lu Qiu'er would not come to talk to Kui Qingkai for no reason, she must be holding something back. It's just that nothing will happen after Lu Qiu'er returns. But that night, Pei Nanchen found out about Lu Qiu'er's poisoning. Pei Nanchen went directly to Kui Qingkai's room and asked her directly, "It was you who poisoned Qiu'er?" Kui Qingkai looked at Pei Nanchen's cold expression and wondered, "What's the poison?" Pei Nanchen looked at Kui Qingkai with disappointed eyes and said, "Qiu'er won't do anything to you, Are you so intolerant of her? She is already weak, how could you poison her so viciously? Kui Kinkai shook her head and said, it's not me. Why should I poison Chiur? Nan Chen, I didn't do anything. Pei Nanchen said, Chiur got poisoned just because she ate your snacks. Who else would she be if she hadn't been you? No one else in this house will harm her. Kui Kinkai looked at Pei Nanchen in disbelief, you don't believe me. As you said, why should I poison Chiur? She is your cousin, so of course I will not harm her. Pei Nanchen laughed at himself coldly and said, really? Obviously he didn't believe Kui Kinkai's words. Chiur almost died. I want to investigate this matter clearly. This was the first time Kui Kinkai saw Pei Nanchen looking so cold and stern, as if the sword on his body was unsheathed. It's just that the sword was pointed at her. This made Kui Kinkai feel very uncomfortable. But she comforted herself that Pei Nanchen just misunderstood. As long as he knew that she was not responsible for the poison, the misunderstanding would be resolved. Is Chiur okay? Pei Nanchen said, do you think there is anything wrong with her? If something happens to her, I won't let anyone go. Hearing these words, Kui Kinkai couldn't believe it. No matter how stupid she is, she still understands something. She instinctively felt that Pei Nanchen was special to his cousin. Pei Nanchen immediately ordered a thorough investigation of the entire Qingziyuan. Then he found a maid. This maid is indeed serving Kui Kinkai, but this maid was not brought by her from the Kui family, but a maid given to her by the Pei family. This maid personally admitted that she was responsible for the poison. Although she did not say that it was Kui Kinkai who instigated it, anyone with a discerning eye would know that this matter was related to Kui Kinkai. The maid's refusal to identify him made Pei Nanchen more certain that Kui Kinkai had poisoned him. He had the maid disposed of and walked away immediately. Pei Nanchen went to his cousin's yard to take care of his cousin. When Zhang Zhiluo saw this scene, she felt very disdainful. This Pei Nanchen does indeed look handsome, with deep and cold facial features. Is it because of this face that Kui Kinkai fell in love with Pei Nanchen? Does she like this kind of flamboyant and cold atmosphere? Zhang Zhiluo guessed in her mind and came to Lu Qiuer's room. She is like a gust of wind, just like watching a movie, but people here cannot see her. Lu Qiuer leaned weakly on the head of the bed, coughing constantly. Pei Nanchen came to the bedside, looked at Lu Qiuer distressedly and said, cousin, I'm sorry, this is my fault, I made you suffer. Lu Qiuer shook her head weakly and said, cousin, you don't have to blame yourself. I was careless. I'm just afraid that I will die like this and never see my cousin again. Lu Qiuer's eyes were filled with tears when she said this, and a drop of tear instantly fell down, looking like pear blossoms with rain. Lovable. Zhang Zhiluo looked at the scene and sighed, it would be a pity not to act with this kind of acting skills. Looking at Lu Qiuer like this, Pei Nanchen blamed himself even more, I'm sorry, don't blame your cousin. No, how dare I, cousin, don't worry, I don't blame my cousin, I won't say anything, ahem. Pei Nanchen frowned tightly and said, cousin, I'll treat you well, I'll have someone arrange a good marriage for you. You can marry and live peacefully, with the Pei family behind you, no one will dare to let you be wronged. No, cousin, don't drive me away. Cousin, I won't bother my cousin, it's my fault, I made my cousin unhappy, woohoo. Cousin, I beg you, don't do this to me. Lu Qiuer looked weak and pleading, and Pei Nanchen softened his heart. That's all, if you want to stay in the mansion, just stay in the mansion. Pei Nanchen didn't stay long. After coming out of Lu Qiuer's place, he went to the study room without looking for Kui Kinkai. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fen Yuan Candy. Chapter 249. Chapter 249 directed and acted by myself, second update. After Pei Nanjun left, the expression on Lu Qiuer's face instantly disappeared. She no longer cried, but showed a cold expression. Kui Qingkai, she thinks it will be useful if she takes the title of Madam. Of course I have a way to deal with her. With that said, Lu Qiuer got out of bed and took out a box from the crack of the bed with several bottles in it. These bottles and jars look like poison. This Lu Qiuer is a snake-hearted person. Kui Qingkai stayed in the room, her eyes a little red and a little aggrieved. The maid next to Kui Qingkai said angrily, "Miss, my uncle did this to you for a cousin. Young lady is such a kind person, but my uncle still doubts you. I heard from the boys that my uncle went to my cousin's yard. My uncle was very gentle to the young lady before, it's all because of the cousin." Kui Qingkai said nothing. But she did feel aggrieved and realized that the cousin was very important. Kui Qingkai quickly calmed down and said, "I obviously didn't poison her, but she was poisoned. It was obviously someone in the house who did it. Someone used my hand to deal with this cousin. Or someone is using this cousin to deal with me." Kui Qingkai has not yet doubted that Lu Qiuer will direct and act on her own. Zhang Ziluo felt that Pei Nanjun's reaction was a bit strange, saying that he had no intention of caring about this cousin, but he seemed to be very protective of her. But no matter what, it was not a good thing for Pei Nanjun to treat Kui Qingkai like that and later let people in the house bully Kui Qingkai. She was very disdainful in her heart. When Zhang Ziluo woke up the next day, her head was very messy because of the dream she had had. She rubbed her head vigorously, then got out of bed and washed up. Mrs. Kui has already prepared breakfast. After breakfast, Zhang Ziluo made medicine for Kui Qingkai. After boiling the medicine, she started making bread. It was still early, so Kui Hejin also helped. Although Kui Qingkai had never made pasta, she also came to the panel and said, "Sister-in-law, I also want to help." Zhang Ziluo said, "Can you make pasta?" Kui Qingkai shook his head and said, "No, but I want to learn." Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "Then you can learn from me." Zhang Ziluo patiently taught Kui Qingkai how to roll out dough and how to make bread, explaining every step in detail. Kui Qingkai also studied very seriously. After making a bread shape, his eyes lit up. Doing something and learning something new gives Kui Qingkai a feeling of fulfillment in her heart. And looking at the shape of the bread made in her hands, Kui Qingkai found it quite novel. "Sister-in-law, is this a snack? It's different from any snack I've had before." She has never seen such snacks before. "Looks good, but I don't know what it tastes like." Zhang Ziluo explained while busy making the bread in her hand, "This is bread. It will be baked in a while. Once you taste it, you will know the difference between bread and daily pastries." Kui Qingkai was curious and full of expectations. She carefully helped Zhang Ziluo make bread. Although it was clumsy and slow at first, after doing it a few times, Kui Qingkai knew how to do it and gradually got started. Zhang Ziluo looked at Kui Qingkai and said, "Well done." Kui Qingkai had a faint smile on her face after being praised. But when she thought that her sister-in-law was younger than her, she sighed in her heart that she didn't know as many things as her sister-in-law. After Kui Qingkai got familiar with it, it was almost time, and Kui Hejin went to Shishi Academy to take classes. Zhang Ziluo took the prepared bread and went to the bread kiln in the yard to bake bread. In this way, Kui Qingkai and Mrs. Kui are making bread. She bakes bread, which saves time and can make more bread in the morning. When the bread is baked, the aroma of the bread spreads out. Kui Qingkai and Mrs. Kui were making bread in the house, and they both smelled such a strong aroma of bread. Kui Qingkai couldn't help but said, "Mom, is this the smell of bread? It smells so good." Mrs. Kui said, "Yes, This is the smell of baking bread. Exiled can make bread with many flavors, and this egg yolk cake is the best when baked. Kui Kinkai said, this is the first time I know that salted duck egg yolk can be used to make bread and snacks. When I was in Beijing, everyone didn't eat salted duck eggs very much. Mrs. Kui smiled and said, not only that, Exiled also pickled the eggs and said that they are also delicious. Are you turning into an egg? Kui Kinkai had eaten boiled eggs in the capital, and they tasted weird, so she didn't eat them much. But some people like to eat food with this taste. Mom, I heard that the pickling method of turning eggs is very unique. The secret recipe is in the hands of a very few people. Can my sister-in-law also pickle it? Mrs. Kui said confidently, your sister-in-law knows a lot of things, pickled preserved eggs are nothing. You will know after a long time. Kui Kinkai thought of the food she ate yesterday and said, indeed, the ordinary porridge and noodles she makes are delicious. Kui Kinkai had to admit this. Zhang Zhiluo naturally didn't know Kui Kinkai's doubts. She was concentrating on baking bread. I have been busy with many things these days, and I have not been able to set up a stall and do business. Although I have some money now, I spent a lot of money to get medicine for Kui Kinkai. To take good care of Kui Kinkai's body, she needs money to take medicine, so she wants to earn more money. If the war had not spread to Bizhu, Zhang Zhiluo would have set up a store to do business, and even expanded some businesses. At the moment, the most important thing is to protect your family first. The stall can only be set up like this for now. After a while, it will be time to harvest wheat and potatoes. With potatoes, she can make other foods. After baking the first batch of bread, Zhang Zhiluo placed it on the grate, brought it into the room, placed it in front of Kui Kinkai and said, second sister, this is freshly baked bread. You can taste it, but it's a little hot right after it's baked. Be careful. Kui Kinkai knew that her sister-in-law was running a small business to support her family, so she quickly waved her hand and said, sister-in-law, you want to use these breads to set up a stall, how can I eat them? Kui Kinkai suffered a lot after escaping from Nanzhou and realized how important a penny is. Not to mention that this piece of bread costs 5 or 6 cents, and the more expensive ones cost more than 10 cents each. She couldn't bear to eat it at all. She was already embarrassed to go to her parents' family, but she couldn't cause any trouble. Zhang Zhiluo said, second sister, do you think my cooking is not delicious? No, how could it be? I knew it was delicious as soon as I smelled the aroma. Zhang Zhiluo could probably guess Kui Kinkai's concerns, and she said, don't worry, eat, there is a lot more. Besides, the second sister has eaten so many delicacies before. By the way, help me taste it and see if there is any improvement. Only after you have tasted it and know how it tastes, can you give your opinion. If you improve the bread making, it will taste better and your business will be better. Kui Kinkai suddenly found it hard to say no. But she knew in her heart that her sister-in-law just wanted to comfort her so that she could eat with peace of mind. In fact, just looking at such beautiful bread, she couldn't help but want to eat it. She even thought about setting up a stall with her sister-in-law to see what it was like. She even thought about learning business from her sister-in-law. Well, then I'll eat it. Eat with confidence, you are too thin, just eat more to make up for your body. Little cuties, I especially want to ask you for monthly tickets. End of this chapter. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 250. Kui Kinkai felt warm and moved in her heart when she listened to Zhang Zhiluo's words. Sister-in-law is also very kind. No wonder the eldest brother, who is so indifferent, cares so much about his sister-in-law. Not to mention the eldest brother, even she has only been with her sister-in-law for a day, and she can't help but feel good about her. It's like there is a kind of magic about her that makes people want to get close to her involuntarily. Sister-in-law, thank you, I'm sorry for causing you any trouble. Zhang Ziluo said, "Hey, no matter what trouble or not, we are all a family, so don't be so polite. Just treat this place as your own home as long as we have something to eat. You have something to eat?" Kui Kinkai's eyes were a little red. No one in the Pei family had ever said such a thing to her. In fact, what she wants is very simple and contented, just to simply put her at ease. At that time, she was interested in Pei Nanchen, but she didn't have any plans. She didn't care about his background, let alone whether he could get a title and become an official. She thought that as long as he was kind to her and wholehearted, she would be content. She looked at Zhang Ziluo seriously. "I found that my sister-in-law is not only good-looking, but also has a calm and generous temperament. What she was doing when she was 15. She thought for a while, she was still dreaming when she was 15 years old. When I was still a young girl in Huaichun, I met Pei Nanchen and saw that he was being attacked and bullied. I went to help him and even became obsessed with him. To this day, she doesn't understand what happened to her at that time. Originally, with her status at the time, her parents could find her a much better person than Pei Nanchen. There are many talented and famous noble sons in the capital." Thinking of this, Kui Kinkai quickly shook her head and stopped thinking about it. Those things are over, she wants to learn more from her sister-in-law. She found that the music, chess, calligraphy, and painting she had learned were useless and they were not life skills. Cooking and craftsmanship are the practical things. Kui Kinkai took a croissant and took a bite. The soft and sweet feeling when you put it in your mouth really hits your taste buds, with a touch of sweetness. This sweetness is different from the sweetness of cakes, it has a sweet and soft feeling. It is more delicious when it is freshly baked and still warm. Kui Kinkai was amazed by the food. She looked at the bread in her hand in amazement, there are such delicious snacks. It's too much to her liking. I think it tastes better than the pastries made in the imperial kitchen. Kui Kinkai used to be the legitimate daughter of the Duke of Guo. When there were banquets in the palace, her mother would sometimes take them to the palace. At that time, the food placed on the table was all food cooked in the imperial kitchen. The pastries are very beautifully made, with a flowery look, but they taste just like that. This bread is still delicious. She would realize now that it was too modest for her sister-in-law to ask her to give her opinion, such a delicious thing, sister-in-law, I can't give you any opinion. Zhang Ziluo smiled and said, if you like to eat, just eat more. Bake the egg yolk cake later, and then eat the egg yolk cake. In Zhang Ziluo's opinion, the egg yolk cake is delicious. She just wanted to feed Kui Kinkai. Because Kui Kinkai is also very good looking and is pleasing to the eye. She has both a ladylike temperament and a toughness. Kui Kinkai was very embarrassed and said, well, I already had a lot to eat in the morning. The porridge in the morning is digested quickly, so it doesn't matter. Just feel free to eat at your own home and eat whatever you want. Zhang Ziluo was worried that Kui Kinkai was cautious and uncomfortable. She doesn't have so many particularities and rules, so the whole family can be happy. Kui Kinkai nodded, yeah. Mrs. Kui was happy to see her sister-in-law getting along well. She thought Ziluo was really nice. Mrs. Kui did not care to speak and was making bread quickly in her hands. Kui Kinkai ate too and felt too full to eat. This bread is so delicious, I still want to eat it after eating one. Sister-in-law, I'll make the bread first, and you're going to set up a stall later. Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, well, before lunch, go to the town to set up a stall and sell bread. The business should be good, and everyone can eat the bread if they buy it. Kui Kinkai couldn't help but ask, sister-in-law, can I go set up a stall with you? Zhang Ziluo was stunned for a moment, looking at Kui Kinkai's frail appearance, she was a little worried and said, it's okay, but can you do it physically? It's different when setting up a stall than at home. Many people come around to ask a lot of questions and talk to you. If you don't get used to it, it will be very uncomfortable. Kui Kinkai shook her head and said, No, I think it would be good if it was more lively. She was locked in the courtyard by the people of Pei Mansion for a while. The environment was very quiet at that time, and she felt panicked due to the quietness. When I come here, even if I am working in the yard, I can sometimes hear the cheerful sounds of children running around at the door. Sometimes you can hear the voices of villagers passing by. She felt that it was so lively and smoky. And she can't rest on her laurels, she wants to learn some skills. I feel physically stronger, and it's good to have something to do. Zhang Ziluo thought for a while and nodded, that's fine. Chui Qingkai, going out for a walk more often is also good for physical recovery. At almost noon, they made a lot of bread. Zhang Ziluo packed all the bread and put it on the ox cart, and then put a thick straw curtain on the ox cart. Kui Qingkai and Zhang Ziluo got on the ox cart, and they drove the ox cart to the town. When Kui Qingkai ran here from Nanzhou, she was only focused on rushing along the way and had no intention of looking at the surrounding environment. At this time, I felt relaxed. I sat on the bullock cart and went out, looking at the fields in the distance. When the wind blew, the waves of wheat fields rolled. Just looking at it made me feel relaxed involuntarily. The warm wind gently blew the hair around her face, and Kui Qingkai felt relaxed all over her body. Zhang Ziluo asked, "Are you still used to riding in a bullock cart?" Kui Qingkai nodded and said, "Well, I'm getting used to it. It's good here. Here, people live simple happiness." Her mentality has changed a lot now. She feels that it is good to live a simple, stable, and happy life. I feel more comfortable than riding in a carriage. The carriage is covered on all sides and I can hardly see the surrounding environment. It's easy to see the countryside in an ox cart, and people don't feel weird riding in an ox cart. In an environment like the capital city, a noble girl from an aristocratic family would be laughed at to death if she rode in a bullock cart. No one here will laugh at anything. Furthermore, people here don't know her or what she's been through, so she doesn't need to be talked about behind her back. Zhang Ziluo seemed to be able to guess Kui Qingkai's concerns, and she said, "Don't worry, my mother and He Jin have discussed it, and we will tell the truth about your identity to the outside world, and say that you were staying at a relative's house. No one knows about the Pei family. This is an ancient society, and the thinking is still relatively old-fashioned, so saying this can avoid some trouble." Kui Qingkai nodded. They came to the town just in time for lunch. Zhang Ziluo saw that there were more boats moored on this side of the pier, so she parked the bullock cart on this side of the pier, put down her things, and set up a stall. As soon as they were put away and arranged, Zhang Ziluo shouted, "Bread is for sale, freshly baked bread, sweet bread, everyone come and have a taste." Zhang Ziluo suddenly shouted, and Kui Qingkai was startled. She came back to her senses, opened her mouth and wanted to shout, but she couldn't say anything, and her face turned red in anxiety.